Latest edition, Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank, Zoom style for the pod with Jeff Kolpack, Dom Izzo here. It is game week for North Dakota State as the Bison will welcome in the University of Central Arkansas Saturday afternoon at Gate City Bank Field at the Fargodome. The former Sugar Bears. Are you working on that for a story this week where they dropped Sugar from the nickname?
I am not, but I'm open to any ideas, Don. So maybe that's something I'll tackle tomorrow. What happened?
I'll dive into that before kickoff, at least on Saturday. And
what happened to Sugar?
I have no idea. There used to be that up until a few years ago, and it's gone now. So
it's hardly an imposing name for
a team. Lots to get to here, and even from when we did our video blog with Big E on Monday, the announcement came down late Tuesday afternoon. The game will not have any fans in attendance outside of the families of the players involved. This came about 4:30 on Tuesday. I know yourself, Mike McFeely, myself have been chasing this. What can you tell everybody, at least on your end, where this decision came from?
Well, it was a really strange afternoon because around 3 o'clock I was at the Forum, and the news editor, Archie Ingersoll, came over to me and said, hey, we need somebody to cover the Dome Authority meeting. Our guy, Barry Amundsen, that usually does it, isn't working today. So I scurried my stuff, and about 3:20 was off, speeding up 10th Street, going through stop signs and red lights to get to the Dome meeting on time. Thankfully, it was delayed a little bit. But I'm sitting there, and they go through. There's only like 5 agenda meetings. Not much going on in the Dome these days. Got to the Bison game, and Rob Sobolik, the general manager of the Dome, came up and started talking about, well, everything's on track. We're expecting several thousand fans. We got our plexiglass up in the concession stands. We're wiping everything down, so everything's set for the game on Saturday. The meeting adjourned. I was cranking on a story. I talked to Rob about the turf, and it's being fixed. It's fixed for this game. So you remember the squiggly line on the end zone?
Yes.
So that issue's taken care of. So I was talking to him. I was going to do my story on that, and then I see the email come across that said it's going to be player families only. And I'm thinking, well, the Dome Authority had no idea on this. It's really a quick decision, it seemed like. But so I texted Matt Larson and said, hey, Matt, would you be available to comment on this? And let me preface that by saying Matt's been absolutely outstanding through this whole COVID. Poised. I'm the pesky reporter that's always asking him about
positive. He's been willing to talk on pretty much everything that you or I have asked him on.
Yeah, so he's been really good, through this whole, and as tough as it's been, and I can imagine his chair, the pressure that he's had to, that he's been under through all this. And he texted back, said, well, no comment other than, what's on the release. I thought, well, that's really strange, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because what changed from last week?
Right.
That's the question I wanted answered. Last week was a yellow level. This week is a yellow level. What changed from last week?
Well, and that's the interesting part. And obviously, I know both yourself, myself, and Mike talked with the mayor in the city of Fargo and said that nothing came on their end. No quote unquote pressure, so to speak. So I'm still kind of curious on that. I've
heard conflicting stories, right? It's all rumor and hearsay that, something's different about this decision.
No doubt. And honestly, you and I talked about this from the minute the game was announced and the amount of people were going to be there. I think we both were in the mindset that there was too many. And I guess you look around college football, we saw games in the SEC this past weekend where there's a smattering of fans. I think, Jeff, with where North Dakota is right now, and if they had 8,000 people there and we find out there are 400, 500 cases that come out of that, it's a super spreader. That's a bad deal for North Dakota State.
But have there been super spreaders at these other football stadiums?
Well, they haven't had 8,000 people though, at least from what I, can gather. There's been 1,000, but I don't know about that level amount of people and indoors. That's, I think, the other critical part of this too, indoor. If they've had amount of people, it hasn't been inside.
Well, I think you're discounting it. And again, I'm not saying 8,000 is the right number, maybe 5,000 or 4,000. But if you have a monster truck show, the capacity for the dome to switch the air out is really quite remarkable. I mean, they have monster truck shows with 20,000 people in their dome.
Yeah.
And you're not gassing people out there.
Yeah, I don't know on this. It's an interesting.
You have to be a mechanical engineer like me, right?
Well, now, take this now to the football game, and we're going to have something that we've only seen for, spring practice years ago when they used to still do scrimmages in the spring when there was a smattering of people. That's what we're going to have on Saturday.
Well, the Bison are going to have to, regardless, they're going to have to bring their own energy, whether it's 8,000, 5,000 or players' family, which be 500? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, I believe Central Arkansas is going to have a small contingent as well. And then the amount of scouts, which we'll get to in a second, in the media. And that's going to be it because the band won't be in there either.
Well, so anyway, this week it's been a weird year. So why wouldn't this week be normal?
It's true. I guess that leading up everything else with football on that front. Speaking of that, yesterday there are 3 major outlets with stories on Trey Lance. ESPN starts the day, the NFL Network drops one, and then Pete Thamel from Yahoo Sports, all with long-form stories on the Bison quarterback, which again leads to the next point that there are now 26 NFL scouts that are going to be in Fargo on Saturday, Jeff. We have not seen that many since Carson Wentz on Pro Day. There would have been more had there not been a blizzard the day before on Pro Day. And it just begs the question of what are we going to see on Saturday? This is just going to, and College Game Day is going to have a feature on them that this is going to be something else that we haven't seen before. Not for a game. We've seen it for the draft and Pro Day, but not for an actual Bison game like this.
This is Trey Lance's Pro Day. I think the only thing
good point.
Is Ron Jaworski down there shaking hands with everybody. That this indeed, and maybe can we put water on a football like they did with Carson in the third quarter?
I don't know if they'll do that or
Trey
not.
handles that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that'll happen with this game, but that's the intriguing part of this to me is that A, the amount of scouts that are going to be there, and B, if this game gets out of hand, which obviously the Bison are a considerable favorite, do they let off the gas pedal, Kolpack? Does Trey play all 4 quarters? Does Dylan Radins play all 4 quarters or not?
Absolutely not. There's no way they play all 4 quarters. And I think you need to get Zeb Nolan in there to say, okay, are you going to be our guy for the spring? And I don't think you let off the gas with Zeb. You just don't let him hand off. You need him to have valuable reps.
Yeah.
Got to see him in a game situation. So if the game gets out of hand, I think for a change, NDSU, because they've been really good over the years in the fourth quarter of just handing it off to Dimitri Williams up the middle. Those poor 4th-string running backs.
Or Sabian Clark, whoever. Yeah.
Because they're getting the ball and they're going up the middle.
Yep.
So I think this would be a pass, if you will, for the coaching staff to say, you know what, I know, and if it gets to that, I know we're up 38-14, but I'm sorry, we got to find out if this is our guy in the spring.
Well, the interesting part of that NFL story is that Zeb Nolan said he's coming back no matter what in 2021. And obviously we know 2020 is, a free year eligibility-wise. So if Trey Lance decides to go Kolpack, the Bison have a now 6th-year senior at quarterback to bridge the gap between 2021 and whoever is going to be, if it's Cam Miller, if it's Cole Payton in 2022 that could be the guy. That's a huge deal, I think, that he decides he's going to come back.
Well, what a luxury to have an experience with that, because right now we know that Zeb's going to go into coaching at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got a guy who's thinking like a coach already. He's had grad assistant opportunities right now. He could go into some, I'm guessing, pretty good programs somewhere.
I think he might think also he might have if he thinks he has a chance at pro football, if the other Bison quarterbacks, that hey, if I have a chance to start 1 year and throw to Phoenix Sproles and Christian Watson and those tight ends that you did in your story today, why not do that with an offensive that we figure is going to be really good again in 2021.
And I think, Dom, it's a chance for him to say, it's no shame losing a starting job to a quarterback who's going to be a top 15.
Yes, right. Yep, I think that's that. I think luxury is the perfect word to describe that for what the Bison may be in for 2021. Your story out today, and we've talked about this a little bit last week about the announcement of the new linebacker corps, is about the playmakers on defense. We've talked so much about offense. That's all we've talked about. But this is the first time, where we don't have a guy to identify on the Bison defense as the guy. It started, years ago with maybe Coulter Boyer and Preston Evans. It eventually goes to Cole Jurek and Kyle Emanuel to Greg Menard. And then Derek Tuska's had that mantle for the last couple of years with Jabril Cox. And now we're going to find out who these guys are going to be on Saturday, I think.
Jabril Cox, gone. Derek Tuska, gone. Marquise Bridges, gone. James Hendricks, gone. What do those four have in common? They are playmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the door is open here. The cupboard is open. And we'll find out if NDSU has some guys that are willing, that can pick up that slack. I think Kaiser can be that guy.
I do too.
In the linebacker situation. I think Tony Pierce can be that guy. I think in the middle, you're pretty solid with the walk-on tight ends and Ching and Bigler now defensive tackles, nose guards. Josh Hayes can be that guy.
Yep.
But they have to be that guy.
And Hayes, obviously, he's played since a true freshman in the national championship game and shown there. I think what we saw from Kaiser last year at that spot, you and I, we asked him constantly about it, about moving. Now it's official. He's certainly got the talent. He's not got the size, but I think he's got the speed on that. And Michael Tutsey's the other guy, Kolpack. We know he's a playmaker, and that's the one that they definitely know on the back end that they've got back in 2020.
And my question of Tutsey is don't put too much on himself. Don't think you have to do it all, because he's going to play some nickel back, and so he's going to play a couple different positions. Do your job, right? And that's what this defense has done so well over the years is they'll play their gap and trust that the other guy will be able to handle their job. Where defenses get in trouble, and especially in Tampa too, say you're the middle linebacker, you feel like you have to cover the whole field. You can't do that. You have to play your lane, play your gap, as they like to say, gap. And so as long as these players trust everybody else to do their job, then you have a chance to be pretty good.
There's another guy I'm looking at, defensive end. You mentioned Tony Pierce. I look at Big E's guy. I know you like him too, and Brendan Cook. We only got to see a flash last year that maybe he is the sleeper on the defense, that we're going to know his name. And Bison fans are certainly going to know his name maybe after this game or certainly in the spring.
He was really good at Delaware before he went out with an injury. I know it's sort of second half, semi-garbage time a little bit, but he also made some plays when the game was on the line.
And against Davis, too. The following week he did.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we're going, well, who is this guy?
Yep.
Right, he got hurt against Davis, not Delaware. And you kind of go, okay, he was a recruited player from Illinois, state of Illinois. And one of those guys that when he signed, you overlooked him, right? He kind of went, okay, I guess he's pretty good. But he emerged before he got hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a guy I'm really intrigued to see how healthy he is, and B, what kind of impact he can make. We've talked about Ogbu as well, who we had a chance to interview yesterday. All the potential is there. I know you said last week we got to see it out of him. He's got to be on the field to see, because Bison coaches like the athleticism. We know that.
I know, but again, I'm not going to. I see guys like this every year where there's all this potential. And I really don't want to talk to him much until I see it, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's fair enough. We go down that road, though, plenty on this. You probably tell me to pump the brakes more on guys than need be, but, let's see it. I want to see what happens on that. The other at linebacker as well, we mentioned Kaiser. I want to see a couple of the backup guys get in there too, Kolpack. We talked about this last week. Are they going to do that or not? Are they going to rotate guys or not? We know they're going to do it up front. Are they going to do that at the linebacker spot?
Absolutely not. They never have and never will. Travis Beck was almost decapitated before he came off the field.
It took a lot for him to come off the field. Yes, I agree. Let's chat a little here on the opponent, Central Arkansas. I think we forget there is an actual team that the Bison are playing on Saturday. This is going to be their fourth game. They're coming off a home win over Missouri State. But prior to that, they had 2 weeks off. They lost to Alabama Birmingham, and they played Austin Peay, which seems like it was 2 months ago in the FCS kickoff game. I've watched part of all three of their games. I think you have as well. What have you taken from the Bears from the first three games you've seen?
The first issue, Dom, I have with them is their quarterback isn't multidimensional. And I think to beat the Bison, you need a quarterback that can run and throw. We've seen that over the years. Trey Roberson, for instance, even though he didn't make it a national title game. Even go back to Matt Barr from Western Illinois when he came and won at the Dome. You need a guy that can do both and hurt you with plays. The James Madison quarterback, for instance.
Shore,
Brian Shore was that guy. Remember how he made plays from nothing?
Every time, specifically on third down, too.
That's what you need to beat NDSU. And so I don't think Braylon Smith is that guy. He's averaging 0.7 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done in the Dome. So if you're one-dimensional, that's a big deal. Now, there's not going to be fans there.
Yep.
So he'll be able to make checks and audibles and won't have to contend with that. But I think it's going to be a tough going. If the Bison defense is pretty good, and we don't know that yet, but I'm guessing they might be pretty good. If they're pretty good, I think it's going to be tough for Central Arkansas to move the ball.
Well, that's the first time a first-time quarterback is coming to the Dome. We don't have to worry about fans. Remember that storyline? We beat that in the ground for a while in the early part of this decade.
Because it's a story, but it's a story every time.
It was at the time, and I think Shore is the one, and Gubru maybe before it, were probably the ones that dispelled it after that. I don't know if it's so much Taryn Christian put in that boat as well. I don't think so much anymore, but it's definitely, you mentioned it's a good point. It's really going to be interesting to see on Saturday. I look also on their defense. Robert Rochelle is a guy at corner that is, if Trey Lance is above and beyond the top FCS prospect, Rochelle's in the top 5 of NFL draft getting attention at corner. And he's got a heck of a matchup to go against these Bison wide receivers on Saturday.
He is, and that's going to be a great matchup. Christian Watson against Robert Rochelle. That Rochelle, he's a pretty big corner. Watson at 6'3" is a big receiver. I think that's going to be a fascinating matchup. Let me go back to the defense. So in the Bison during the week when they practice in the Dome, the defense prepares with huge fan noise over the loudspeakers. I mean, they crank that as loud as you can get. So the defense has an idea with their hand signals and when they're working against an opposing offense, they're simulating game conditions with the noise. Now, could NDSU do that right now, technically, by law? I mean, I'm sure they won't, obviously.
Like you're saying during the game to pipe in
during the game. Could they pipe their own crowd noise in?
It's happening in other sporting events. I don't know but I think it's only happening for like the television broadcast. I don't think they can actually hear it in the actual stadium. So I don't think so.
I mean, it'd be a kind of a low blow, obviously, to do that. But they have that capability to drown the other.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I don't think they're going to go that route. But
imagine Dan Michaels go, and it's 3rd and long, and all of a sudden the music or the crowd noise pipes through the
cranks up. Right, yeah. That's a good question on Dan.
3rd and long for the Bears.
Yeah, if he's going to do another first down, and it's just going to be crickets when he does that on Saturday.
That's another cricket.
Yeah, it's just going to be odd.
First down.
Before we wrap, let's chat a little bit about what we saw of Jabril Cox. I know LSU lost to Mike Leach, which, boy, that's going to be fun in the SEC this fall. But and Bo Pelini giving up over 600 yards. He might want to go back to Youngstown after what happened on Saturday.
I guess he was the first one in to Ed Orgeron to apologize and say,
he should be.
Coach better. Gives up a record number of yards passing to the Mississippi State quarterback, and it wasn't even close. He blew past the record.
Jabril looked like the same old Jabril, though. Pick 6.
Well, he did on that one play. Now, we don't know the rest of if he missed assignments because, I mean, when a guy throws, 670 yards or whatever it was, you got to figure everybody missed assignments at some.
Yes. Yeah. You're not writing home to anybody on that. Let's do a couple predictions here before we wrap, because we actually have some FCS versus FCS games on Saturday. One of your favorites, North Alabama, is playing its first game against a former FCS team in Liberty. What do you like here?
Are they playing this game online?
Every time.
I can't get over it. I can't get by the online school. I got to go with Liberty. I'm not sure North Alabama, where they're at in their program as far as getting up to FCS standards. They made some strides, and then they had a couple bad losses too last year, if I remember right.
This is year 3 of their transition here. So this is, I mean, if you want to go back to North Dakota State, and that's not fair to compare, but year 3 of their transition is when they won 10 games and won an FBS game in year 3.
Yeah. So I'm going with Liberty.
Houston Baptist is playing its 4th game against Eastern Kentucky, who's both playing their 4th game. Bailey Zappi's an interesting prospect, Kolpack. The Houston Baptist quarterback has been throwing for a ton of yards, and he's getting some NFL buzz right now.
I'm just never impressed with Eastern or Western Kentucky. I know Western's FBS, but it just seems like those programs just live in the land of mediocrity year out. So I'm going to go with Houston Baptist with the quarterback.
Houston Baptist won in Vermillion, remember, last year. I like them in that game as well. Jacksonville State plays its first game, and they're playing Florida State, which, boy, it is not good for the Seminoles right now. I don't think they lose here, though, do they?
No, I don't think you lose here. But if Jacksonville State ever had a chance to pull something off like this,
good point.
Be the year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that front. I like the chance there. For
I think the Bison played Florida State, they'd stomp them by 3 touchdowns.
Whoa, 21 points?
I do.
Woo-hoo.
Florida State looks dreadful.
They have not looked good. They have not looked good so far. Let's do one big game. This is the ranked matchup of the weekend: Auburn and Georgia.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Get a vibe on teams. Because you just don't know, but where's it at? I'm just gonna go.
The game's in Athens.
I'm gonna go with Georgia.
I like Georgia at home too. They got Kirby Smart's got a pretty good team, and that'll be the game of the weekend in the big boy division. All right, that'll wrap up this Kolpack and Izzo podcast. We got a huge day of coverage coming for you. Our pregame show will be up at inforum.com at about 12:30 on Saturday. Then we'll have our live game blog going throughout the day, and then we'll wrap things up with our first, I think, post-game Zoom. Is that what we're doing there?
I don't know. You're the chief in this March.
Our first post-game Zoom, and Kolpack's going to try and see if he can get an interview with about 3 NFL scouts. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be. Yeah,
I'm sure they'll talk to you, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be great fun on Saturday. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you at the game on Saturday.